How are Azure resources created and managed? See, we know now very well that in Azure everything is offered as a service. Virtual machine is a service. App service is a service. But we have to create instances of these services. I need to create an instance of virtual machine. I need to create an instance of app service. I need to create an instance of SQL database. And these are referred as a resource. So we'll have an app service resource. We'll have an SQL database resource. We'll have a virtual machine resource. All these are different resources. So Azure resources are individual compute, networking, data or application hosting services that have been deployed. You have provisioned them. You have created them into an Azure subscription. So later I'm going to talk about shortly. For doing anything in Azure, the first thing you'll have to do is acquire an Azure subscription. Once you have the Azure subscription, it is going to be treated as a billing container. Any kind of resource you have in the subscription, the cost of that will be attached to the Azure subscription. Overall, all the resources combined billing will happen at the subscription level. So the first thing we will need to work with Azure is the Azure subscription. Let us say we have the Azure subscription and now we want to create these resources. Maybe web app through an app service. We want to create a virtual machine resource. We want to, different resources we want to create. How does it work? Primarily, there are 4 ways of interacting with Azure. We can use Azure Portal. Azure Portal is a web-based application, and in that web-based application we are provided with a user interface to select a particular resource, set the properties, basically configure that resource and hit on create button and the resource will get created. You can use PowerShell. PowerShell is a scripting language. And in that scripting language, we have got ready-made commandlets, CMD, commandlets. And through these commandlets, we are going to create the infrastructure in Azure. So is the case with Azure CLI. Both are for the sake of automation. Windows administrators, people coming from Windows background, they generally prefer PowerShell. And those who are working with Linux, Unix, they generally prefer CLI. So Microsoft has given both the ways of controlling the infrastructure in Azure, PowerShell and CLI. CLI is command line interface. If you are a .NET, Java, Python, Go language developer, you can use REST clients, HTTP request with JSON data. REST clients can be used. But point is, in all cases, you have to ultimately reach Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager is a service which is running in the Azure infrastructure, which will receive all our requests. And then this is one which will authenticate that it is coming from the right user. Authorize, check whether you are authorized to perform a particular task or not. And then it will create the resource in the data centers, in the infrastructure of Microsoft Azure. So there are multiple ways of communicating. Point is that we have got Azure Portal, PowerShell, CLI, REST API. What will happen is, in all cases, what ultimately goes here is called as ARM template. It's a JSON document with all the configurations which we do. I'll show you in practical when I'm demonstrating our first example itself. a ARM template will be created from all the configuration which we create. And that ARM template is submitted to ARM, Azure Resource Manager. And that ARM template is then used for creating these resources. People who understand, ARM templates are very similar to what we have in Terraform scripts. Same way we have got ARM templates here which can be used for creating various resources. So Azure Resource Manager template is a JSON document with one or more resources to be deployed in an Azure resource group. What is this resource group concept? I'll come to it shortly. Automation through portal, but more frequently through PowerShell or Azure CLI. Through program, you can actually generate ARM template which gets submitted to the background. Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI, or even for that matter REST API. If you are a Java developer, Python developer, you may want to use this. Never we actually use REST API directly. On top of REST API, always we'll find a language specific SDK. That SDK is what you have to figure out as a developer and start using that. So Azure Resource Group, what is this? In Azure, we have got subscription at the top level. Inside the subscription, we can create one or more resource group. Subscription is at the top level. And there we create a resource group. And it is inside the resource group we are going to create resources. Subscription, resource group and resources. So what is the significance of resource group? Now first point, you cannot create a resource in Azure which does not belong to a resource group. Compulsory it should belong to a resource group. So as the name implies, can I say a resource group is a logical collection of resources all having a common life cycle. Their life cycle is same. I create them maybe one by one, all under the same resource group. I use them, and when I don't need all of them, I'll go and simply delete the resource group. Automatically all the resources under that resource group will get deleted. Yes, when you create a resource group, you are supposed to create a region. You have to select a region where the resource group has to be created. But important is the resources which are created inside the resource group need not be in the same region. That's why it is said logical grouping. It's not a physical grouping. It's not like resource group is a container and in that you are putting the resources. No. Resource group is by itself a resource to which you are tying up the metadata of the resources so that the metadata is stored in one region. The resources can be in different regions if you want. Every resource can exist only in one resource group and must exist in that. At any point of time, you can add a resource to a resource group. You can remove a resource from the resource group. You can move a resource from one resource group to another resource group if you want. You can have resources residing in different regions, can be scoped to permissions. For example, I want to give permission to you to work on these resources. I'll give you permission at the resource group level. So you will be able to work only with resources in this particular resource group. So these kind of facilities we are going to get through resource group. Resource group can also be used to get a segregated bill for all the resources created under a given subscription. See, subscription is entire subscription, one single amount. I want split of that amount. What are the different resources and how much they costed? Yes, we can see for each resource how much is the cost. But if I want to see overall how many resources total I can group them all into a common resource group and see the cost. So there are many more reasons why we should actually create a resource group, which we'll cover later. But right now at this point of time, only understand at the highest level, there is subscription. Actually above subscription, there is something called as management group. All these things we are going to discuss much in detail when we do Azure governance. Right now, subscription is what you have to activate. Resource group is what you should create and select that while creating the resources. This is how you should understand clearly.